Cllr French, Senior Executive Engineer at Transit Department.
Cllr, will you tell me what is the council's reaction to this decision?
We're delighted with today's decision. It was comprehensive. We won on all the points, so it reinforces that we were on the right track and we were doing the right thing at the time.
And what does this mean for your ability to be able to plan future active travel schemes?
It has a major impact. It shows us the right path. It shows us the way to do it. It gives us the confidence that we're doing it in the correct manner, and it will enable us to continue our policy.
And finally, the question everyone's asking about will that cycleway, the one-way traffic system in Strand Road go ahead?
We're going to consider the whole judgment very comprehensive, so we'll do that over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll let everybody know in due course what makes sense.
Well, obviously, we're not surprised that the court found it was against the former judge, Strand Road, and his decision in the High Court. So as a public representative who work on behalf of the community of Sandon, I'm very pleased to be at this particular point in our case. The judges explained that there was errors in this particular case, particularly in relation to Dublin City Council not disclosing certain information and the manner in which they conducted this in the first instance. So, as I say, today's judgment was no surprise because it was technical, it was in law, and it was about a judge's decision, a prior judge's decision in relation to the High Court. And this was an appeal taken by Dublin City Council against that particular judge, which we defended. And in many cases, the judges acknowledged that particular situation. But I said, in law, this is the court that they decide in law whether the judge erred, and the judge erred in law. The principles that we took this case on are not erred at all. The principles that we took these cases on still stand, and still stand for any community within the city centre area and within the entire city area. Dublin City Council proceeded in this particular incident to undermine the local community. The local community felt that they needed to challenge this. We went to court, we established a court case, we won those court cases. They were appealed to this court, and this court now has overturned those appeals on points of law that the judge heard. However, again, they reiterated and they accepted the apology of Dublin City Council that certain information was not forthcoming. And in many cases, the court was misled by Dublin City Council in the same way as the community was misled by Dublin City Council, and that's why we are here today. So I'm very proud of the community, and I'm very proud of this case.
What for the Sandon residents who took this case, though, what are the implications? This is now paved the way for that cycle to go ahead and Strand Road to go to one lane.
Well, Dublin City Council are going to have to make the approach to that community, and they're going to have to go through the statutory laws that are there in the Section 38 of the Road Traffic Act and other acts accordingly, and they're going to have to do that in an appropriate way. Go back to this community and do something that is proper and right. Many people in the community would prefer that this cycleway was put onto the seafront area and rather on the road, and so they can keep the road. There's plenty of space there to do it. So all that's into the future. There's also the issue in Sandymount in relation to the Sandymount, flood defences, which is going to be a fairly substantial concrete barrier that's going to be running along the coast. There's ample space to put a cycle path on that as well. So the future looks good. The people of Sandymount have been vindicated. They were correct in taking this particular case. The judge never made any decision that we were wrong. We were never wrong in taking this particular case. So there's plenty of opportunity. And as I always said, everybody that I speak to is pro-cycling, and pro-walking, and pro-active travel. But there's a manner in which you conduct this business, there's a manner in which the local council have to actually deal with the local public, and they didn't do that in a proper way. Even though they had all that consultation, with 6 months consultation, there were a lot of issues at the end of the day. And I believe that Dublin City Council simply thought they could push this down people's throats. Now that's not the case, and we're back to square one. So I think into the future, Dublin City Council and the local community can come up with a really, really strong, good solution that's going to fit everybody and that is going to be very successful.
Are you not supporting in any way that the appeal
No, I'm not, because at the end of the day, it's always the difficult thing is mounting these challenges. These challenges are very difficult to mount. So the fact that we mounted this challenge, the fact that we got into the High Court, the fact that we got this suspended, we got this stuff, our case was heard, our opinions were heard. No, that's not disappointing. The law is the law. I respect this court. I respect the judiciary. I respect that it's done. Really and truly, at the end of the day, that's where we had to come under. I didn't respect Dublin City Council decision because I thought there was many flaws. But here we have a judgment by a court, again, which is about another judge erring at the end of the day. The procedures in which Dublin City Council have to operate now on are very, very clear and have been set by the court. We know what happened to it. So I'm not disappointed in any way whatsoever. This isn't a win or losing situation. This is a situation where a local community that were disempowered by Dublin City Council and now empowered. So now we go back to square one, having all this experience under our belt, and we know that the community at Sandymount and other communities like them have a bright future and are empowered now to deal with Dublin City Council and anybody who tries to bully or intimidate local communities.
And Dublin City Council now can go ahead with this cycle route, and it's been a very divisive issue in the Sandymount community. So what would you say? Would you like to see it go ahead or not?
I would like to see a cycle path go ahead in many areas that are actually good, in an appropriate way, with the consent of the local community, not without the consent of the local community. So nothing about us without us. The local community here expressed the desire to have a cycle path, but they don't want it where Dublin City Council want to just shove it, because that would send traffic into the village area. What you'll notice here is in Dublin City Council and in the active travel initiative, all of the traffic that they're talking about that needs to be removed to create a cycle, it gets pushed into the next streets. So what's happening here is that the traffic on Strand Road will be pushed into the village and pushed into other areas. And at the end of the day, the village and the people feel that they are at a deficit. So there's a way of doing this. There's a robust plan there from the local community, and we want that plan, entertained by Dublin City Council. The local politicians want that plan entertained by Dublin City Council. And indeed, James Gagan, who is now a TD for the area, has promoted that alternative plan where the cycleway would go on the beachfront rather than on the roadway. So there's a lot here to win, and there's a lot here, into the future that can actually solve this problem. But Dublin City Council and active travel, and indeed ideologists who would want to promote and shove cycle lanes down our throats, have a challenge here, and that challenge is not Manixon and Council of Flynn, but the public and indeed the robust community at Sandymount and at Irishtown and at Greensend.
But is the implications of this appeal not that they now have free rein to do what they want?
Well, they don't have free rein to what they want, because other challenges can be mounted. Other challenges can be mounted legally. You can get judicial reviews. You may not have the grounds, but you can challenge these things. There are many ways to challenge. You can block roads. You can do all sorts of situations. You can be very active as a community. And this is what this is all about. This is about community activism. And this is about that process of challenging what people feel should not be shoved down their throats. They want to say, they don't want to be pseudo participants. They want to be participants in their neighbourhoods, in their future, in their grandchildren's future. They want a safe, good, inclusive, community. They don't want it wrecked or left in the state that it's in by Dublin City Council. Even cyclists want a proper procedure and a proper situation that's going down that road. So Dublin City Council, yes, attempted to do this in the first instance, and they were challenged. And if necessary, if we don't do it in an appropriate way, they will be challenged again.
But it all costs a fortune. And why didn't you, after the High Court decision, just get into talks with the council and say, let's sort this out without spending small fortunes on legal fees?
Well, we did at all times try to engage with Dublin City Council, with plenty of times. We tried to engage with Mr. Brendan O'Brien, we tried to engage with the NTA. That's very much on record. And indeed, as a city councillor who's on the strategic policy groups in relation to traffic and transport, we always try to make a compromise in relation to this situation. Who wants to end up in court? But Dublin City Council were belligerent. As far as they were concerned, it was their will or highway, it was their self-will to run riot. And they ignored the community. I'm responsible for that community. They elected me. So as a public representative, I'm obliged, and I will defend the public. I don't have to defend Dublin City Council, although I'm a board member of that, and I will defend it. But in this situation, this all came about very quickly during the pandemic, and then was railroaded. And as far as I'm concerned, not properly planned, no proper consultation with the public. There's lots of errors in this case, and they're in this particular judgment. So I wouldn't willy-nilly bring a public or the public purse into disrepute and waste it into courts here. I'm not inclined to do that. And those cost issues will be decided in the next hearing, which is a preliminary hearing on May the 2nd.
Yeah, which you've lost, and you probably have to pay for. And now you're talking about more challenges. Where is all the money for this coming from?
But the point of the matter is, the community in Sandymount, are the ones who will ultimately have to fork up the money for this. It won't be the taxpayers' money. We're not dependent on the taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Dublin City Council will have to defend.
Well, isn't that crazy?
No, it's not crazy. The point of the matter is, if you were in your home and all of a sudden somebody turned up and said, "Hey, we're going to put a cycle lane here without proper consent," how would you feel about that?
Yeah, but you have to talk sometimes.
But this is an entire community. This isn't just one individual. This isn't a small elitist group. This is an entire community, a well-settled community. And these same issues that are rising all over the city as a result of this, but not many people have the courage or the resources to try and mount a challenge to this. And this is the proper way to do it. This isn't a riot, this isn't a major protest. We're not blocking any laneways. We're coming into the courts to ask them to determine a decision that will give us clear direction. And if we feel at the end of the day that Dublin City Council are trying to railroad us or undermine or any other community, I will support that community in taking a challenge against it. That's my job.
The courts have said that Section 38 is now legal and that the council can use it in the way that you said they couldn't.
Well, no, Section 38 can be challenged. You can challenge any section, and that's your God-given right under the Constitution. So nothing is kind of like, factual and can't be challenged. The law is here to be challenged. And indeed, Dublin City Council laws are here to be challenged. And if you're not satisfied with those particular laws, or you have a point of law, you can come into these buildings here, these courts, and give it to the judiciary. I respect their decision. I totally respect their decision, and that's my role. My role in Dublin City Council is to hold the council to account on behalf of the public. That's my role. That's what I do, and that's what I'm here for. I'm holding to account. The judges decided on their end, and let's be clear, the judges' decisions were mainly about just Charles Mania, basically like operating outside of the law, and that his judgments were wrong and his findings were wrong. They never mentioned the fact about our challenge. They never said that we were wrong as a community or Councillor Flynn was wrong. My assertion, was not upheld. They never said that coming into court, Mr. Flynn, you were very wrong. You wasted the court's time. We did not waste any court's time there. Okay.
So why is this important from Dublin City Council's perspective that they won?
Because it allows us to show that active and sustainable transport needs to happen, and it needs to happen in the way that we have been trying to move it forward in. So the fact that Dublin City Council has now won, the chilling effect that has happened across the city and also nationwide when it comes to active travel, I'm hoping that will be lifted, that there is now going to be ambition when it comes to various projects, because we need them, especially in a climate emergency.
And so will that plan by Dublin City Council to make Strand Road one way to traffic and make a cycle lane on it go ahead, do you think?
Well, that is up to the council. So they have received their decision and they have won in this case, and it is now up to the council management and the various engineers. I myself as a rep will be working with the residents and working with the council to see what is best place for not just the area but entirety of Dublin and to move forward.
And it has been a divisive issue in Sandymount. Do you expect that if the council do proceed with the plan that it will create more difficulties?
I'm hoping not, because I've spoken to a number of residents, especially in the last year alone, and this is why I'm very grateful for many of their supports and many of their feedback, because I think what was initially a divisive issue, especially during something, especially during COVID, it was hard for people to communicate, and it was hard for people to see what was going to happen, whereas now I think a lot of people have come together, so we'll see what happens.